Kitakubu.
What's up everyone, KitaSean here. So I know this is information that a lot of you guys already know about. It came out yesterday. I just didn't have the time to make a video on it, but I still wanted to make a video on it, so here we are. This is basically part 7 of the Servant Interlude campaign. We expected something like this to come out. Some of us expected some kind of download campaign or a login campaign, but instead we have the character or Servant Interludes. And this is also something pretty cool because 8 servants are getting new interludes and 3 servants are getting buffs. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about that. And of course, I mean, there's going to be a gacha as well, which we'll talk about in a bit. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the new buffs and the new interludes. So let's go ahead and go over on who gets the interlude and who gets the buffs. So Kuhulin Alter is not getting a buff, but he does get a new interlude, and it looks like Semiramis is actually going into the story. So that's actually something really interesting to see. Cleopatra gets a buff, and she gets an MP buff. I actually think this is a pretty cool buff for her. It's basically an additional skill on her Noble Phantasm, and of course her Noble Phantasm damage percentage goes up. We'll talk about her MP a little after. Maeve gets a skill buff. Personally, I don't think this changes her status on a tier list or just I mean, it's a good buff to have, but it's not something that is game changing. So, I mean, it's still nice to have a buff, but she's been getting a lot of buffs, and she's still, you know, not, yeah. But we'll talk about it after. Assassin Paraison is getting an interlude, and it looks like Shuten Doji is actually going to be in her story. Eldorado Berserker, we have Hector, and we have Mashu in the interlude. I actually thought she was going to get a buff. When I saw her on the banner, I was like, oh, Eldorado Berserker is getting a buff, but she's not. But personally, I don't think she really needs a buff. I think she's good where she is, but it'd be nice to get a buff for her, but just an interlude. And then we have Kato Danzo. This was actually, I was actually really excited to see this as well because I thought she was going to get a buff as well, but no, it's just an interlude. And then Shinjuku no Assassin, he gets the biggest buff out of the 3. I think he has the biggest buff, and it's actually really good in my opinion. It definitely makes him better. So we'll talk about this after, and it looks like Hassan is actually, Cursed Arm Hassan is in his story, and they're in Shinjuku, so something I want to read. I'm pretty sure a lot of female fans in Japan really want to read this as well. For those who don't know, he's actually the most popular male servant in Japan. I don't know why. But Inshu is also getting an interlude as well. So her Noble Phantasm is going to be getting a buff, and when it comes to damage percentage, it does go up. MP1 before the buff, it was 300%, and now it's going to be 400%, so that's MP2 percentage before the buff. So now MP2 is going to be 500%, and MP5 is going to be 600%. So the effect on her Noble Phantasm is going to be apply nullify buff for 1 time for 3 turns. Unfortunately, the HP demerit is still there. I really thought that they were going to take that off, but they kept it. I mean, still sucks, but I mean, it's all good. It's not much. You can heal it off with her first skill, so it really does not matter. But I actually think this is a pretty big buff. I mean, more damage, of course, is nice. And then the nullify buff is a huge one against enemies because of course enemies can buff themselves. So it makes the enemy servants and mobs struggle. And of course this is an AoE Noble Phantasm, so it helps out a lot. So yeah, I actually think this is a pretty big buff for Cleopatra. So Maeve is an interesting one. I mean, she's been getting buffs every now and then, and honestly, I mean they're good buffs. Don't get me wrong, but they were just lacking, you know. So in a way, I guess you can say they were disappointing. And this new buff on her 3rd skill, which was desperately needed, it's basically the same thing. It's a good skill to have, but it's lacking still. It's decreased defense for 1 turn, level 1 20%, level 10 30%. I mean 1 turn, that's it. I mean, it could have been 3 turns. That would have been super nice. I guess it makes sense because the other effect on the skill, chance to inflict charm to opposite gender for 1 turn. I mean, I guess because that's 1 turn, it makes sense. And not only that, the charge time is still pretty high on this one, and it's still a chance to inflict charm, so it's not a guaranteed. So I don't know, like Maeve is a meme right now. It's like, let's go ahead and throw all these small buffs on her. Eventually we'll try to make her super OP, but at the same time we don't really want to, you know. So if they were to buff the skill, it would have been nice if they, you know, if it was guaranteed, but it's not, unfortunately. So it's still a chance, and again, the defense is guaranteed, but only one turn kind of sucks. But I wouldn't bring Maeve just because of this buff. I mean, she still is very lackluster in my opinion. There's just so many other servants that are way better than her. So yeah. Maeve, man, it's just very disappointing. I mean, I don't hate her as a servant. I really don't. But at the same time, it's just like, God. Like I said earlier, Shinjuku Assassin got the biggest buff out of the three, in my opinion. And now it's called Doppelganger B+. Originally, it had increased critical star drop rate for 3 turns. It still does, but the percentage changed drastically. Level 1 9% and level 10 29%. Now it's 20% at level 1. That's a huge jump of percentage. And then at level 10 30%. So before, it was a skill that you didn't really want to level up because, I mean, it was just a really bad skill. I mean, the percentage wise. But now it's 20%, 30%, so this is definitely a skill you want to level up now, especially with the other effects on it. Increased quick card performance for 3 turns, and increased critical strength for 3 turns, both 20% at level 1, 30% at level 10. So yeah, this is a huge buff for him, especially because of the meta right now, because quick is a huge thing. It's because Scotty teams are a thing. So yeah, this helps him with his Noble Phantasm, this helps him with, I mean, critical strength, drop rate, of course quick performance. I mean, he's a quick servant, so he needed something like this. And again, quick teams are a thing, so pairing him up with Scotty is going to be huge. So yeah, I think this is the biggest buff for him, and I think fans in Japan, like female fans in Japan, I'm sure fans all over the world are happy about this, because he's a big deal for females, like female masters. He's a huge deal. Like, I was really surprised how big his fan base is in Japan, but I don't know why he's so big, but now he's a playable servant. So I've always loved his design and his play style, so I'm actually really happy about this as well. So I'm definitely going to be using him a lot now because of this buff. So of course, because it is a campaign, we also have a gacha. Now unfortunately, some of these servants that have interludes are not rate up. Shinjuku Assassin, Eldorado Berserker, Assassin Paraison, and Cleopatra, they're not here. I mean, Cleopatra kind of makes sense because she's a limited servant, but the other 4 stars, it's kind of surprising that they don't have a rate up. But Kato Danzo Ishun have rate ups, Kuhulin Altar had a rate up, Maeve had the rate up, and I'm probably gonna roll for this because I actually don't have Kato Danzo and I don't have Kuhulin. So it would be really nice to pick them up. I'm probably going to go ahead and roll when Kuhulin is by himself. So I'll be rolling on the 22nd. So 22nd, 23rd, yeah. So basically the day before Shitonai comes in. I know I should just save my quartz and stuff for Shitonai, but I really want Ku Alter and I really want Kato Danzo. I especially want Kato Danzo. So yeah, I'm gonna roll and try and get that Danzo. Like, I really love her design. I really loved her as a character in Epic of Remnant Chapter 3. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and try and roll for them. And of course, later on when Shitonai, if she comes, I will roll for that as well. But anyways, that's basically about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Laters.